I used to think being a good person meant I'd never cross certain lines, that no matter what happened around me, my morals would hold steady, that I'd always be able to recognize wrong and walk away from it. But the truth is, I've done things I once swore I'd never do. I've laughed at jokes that hurt people, stayed quiet when someone was being humiliated, agreed with opinions I didn't believe in just to fit in. And each time I did, I told myself, it's not that serious. I didn't start it. Everyone else is doing it too. Until one day, I realized I wasn't sure where the line even was anymore. I didn't wake up one day and decide to betray my values. It was quieter than that, slower, like a gradual shift in gravity where suddenly up didn't feel like up anymore. I started to wonder. What really separates someone who stays true to their morals from someone who slowly, quietly, becomes the very thing they once feared? We like to think we'd always make the right choice. That if we met someone dangerous, we'd sense it right away. That evil has a look, a sound, a shape. But history and psychology tells a more uncomfortable story. Most people who do terrible things never thought they would. They weren't born heartless. They weren't always cruel. They were just vulnerable to the same forces we all are: peer pressure, isolation, desperation, authority, shame, and the scariest part. Sometimes it doesn't take much to shift someone off course, just the right moment in the wrong environment. So in this video, I want to ask a different question. Not why do monsters exist, but what turns good people into them? Because if we can understand that, maybe we can stop ourselves from becoming one, too. Welcome to dayPsych. If this message hits close to home, I hope you'll stick around. Because we're going to explore the psychology behind moral collapse and how to keep your inner compass from losing direction. And if no one else ever told you this before, you're not bad for slipping, you're human. But you don't have to stay lost. I used to believe morality was fixed, like something planted deep inside you, unchangeable. If you were a good person, you stayed that way. But then I noticed something that scared me. I behaved differently depending on where I was, who I was with, how many people were watching. I wasn't faking, but I was definitely bending. There was this time during college, a classmate of mine spoke up against something unfair. He was calm, thoughtful, brave, but everyone in the room went silent and then cold. No one stood up for him, and neither did I later. When people made fun of him behind his back, I laughed along. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't want to be next, because I told myself it's just a joke. But the thing is, that's how it starts, when we let fear of judgment outweigh our values, when we trade integrity for safety. Psychologists call this the situational approach to morality. It means we don't always act based on who we are. We act based on where we are and what we believe is expected of us in that moment. We like to believe we'd never do anything cruel, but if everyone around you stays silent while something cruel happens, you begin to question your instinct. You tell yourself, maybe I'm overreacting. If it were really wrong, someone else would speak up. So you do nothing, and in doing nothing, you become part of the thing you didn't believe in. We've seen this happen in history, in workplaces, in schools, in social media comment sections, where the collective mood can justify anything from public shaming to outright violence. Even people who say, I would never celebrate harm, might do just that if the crowd is large enough, if the justification feels emotional enough. If everyone else is doing it, that's the terrifying part. It doesn't always take evil intentions to do harm. Sometimes all it takes is the right environment and the absence of courage. And I say that not from a place of judgment, but from experience, because I've been the silent one, the one who looked away, the one who laughed when I didn't mean it. It's not easy to admit that, but it's important. Because if we don't recognize how deeply situations affect us, We can't protect ourselves from losing the very values we want to live by. There's a memory I don't like revisiting. It was in high school. There was this new kid, quiet, awkward, different. Some of the more popular kids started mocking him, not outright bullying, just little comments, subtle digs. At first, I didn't say anything. Then one day, I made a joke too, just one. Everyone laughed. That moment stuck with me, not because it felt good, but because it worked. It earned me a seat at their table. At the time, it felt like survival. Looking back, I realize I didn't want to hurt him. I just didn't want to be left out. Psychology has a name for this. It's called deindividuation. The process where you lose your sense of personal responsibility in a group setting, where your actions blend into the crowd, and your conscience gets quieter. Groups are powerful. They offer belonging, identity, validation. But sometimes the price of inclusion is your values. We like to think we're independent thinkers, but studies show that even strong-willed people conform under pressure, especially when a leader or authority figure is involved. Take Stanley Milgram's obedience experiment. Participants were instructed by a calm, authoritative man in a lab coat to deliver electric shocks to someone in another room. Despite hearing screams of pain, many continued just because they were told to. These weren't evil people. They were regular individuals, teachers, parents, students, just like me, just like you. When someone in power tells you, it's okay, or you're helping, it becomes dangerously easy to justify harmful actions, even more so when your peers are nodding along. That's why toxic friend groups, online communities, or even workplaces can become echo chambers for cruelty, where gossip becomes entertainment, where dehumanization hides behind phrases like, it's just a joke, or they deserved it. In group settings, we often stop asking, is this right? And start asking, will they still accept me if I disagree? I remember once confronting a friend about their behavior. They said, why are you making such a big deal out of it? Everyone does this, and I felt like the odd one out for standing up for someone else. That's the danger. When authority and groupthink merge, they create a force strong enough to override empathy. It doesn't always come from evil leaders. Sometimes it comes from the people you love, your friends, your coach, your manager, saying things like, don't ruin the vibe, or just play along. And if you hear that enough times, you might start believing that your discomfort is the problem. Not the behavior, but here's the truth I've had to learn the hard way. If staying in the group means silencing your conscience, then the cost of belonging is too high. No one wakes up and says, I want to become someone I hate. That's not how it happens. It starts small. For me, it started with stress. I'd tell myself I deserved a little escape after a hard day. So I stayed up all night watching mindless videos. Then I started drinking a bit more, skipping meals, ignoring texts, pulling away from people who cared. And before I knew it, my life didn't feel like mine anymore. But I told myself it's just a phase. I'm fine. Everyone does this. That's the thing about vices. They don't take over your life all at once. They seduce you slowly. They disguise themselves as comfort. Until one day, comfort is the only thing you chase. Psychologists call this negative coping behavior, when we use unhealthy habits to avoid emotional pain. It could be drinking, overeating, compulsive sex, gambling, rage, scrolling endlessly, or even isolating. And on their own, these behaviors don't make someone evil, but when they become your only way to feel okay, they start to replace your values. I've seen it in others, too. A friend who used to be kind started lying and stealing just to fuel his addiction. Another became numb to empathy, so deep into porn addiction that real connection made him anxious. One coworker exploded over something small. Turns out he hadn't slept properly in months and had no outlet for his stress. We often ask, how could they do that? But maybe the better question is, what were they trying to survive? Vices become monsters when we lean on them to quiet something inside us. Loneliness, shame, self-loathing, anger. And the longer we numb those feelings instead of facing them, the more distorted our moral compass becomes. Research shows that people struggling with addiction often experience changes in brain function, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, which governs judgment and self-control. That means it's not just about bad choices. Their capacity to make good ones is literally compromised, but the danger isn't just in the addiction. It's in what we start believing along the way. I used to believe I was still a good person, even when I ignored someone crying for help. I thought I deserved to act out because I was hurting too. I told myself it's not that bad, but that's what moral erosion looks like. Not a sudden collapse, but a slow crumble. So if you're wondering whether you're still a good person, that's a good sign. It means you're still paying attention. But don't wait for a full breakdown before you ask for help, because the longer you silence your guilt, the harder it gets to hear your conscience. Your pain is real. But it doesn't have to turn you into someone you don't recognize. I used to think goodness was a trait, something you either had or didn't. Now I realize it's more like a muscle, and muscles can weaken if you stop using them. The truth is, being good takes practice. It's not always about choosing between good and evil. It's about noticing the small moments when you feel tempted to stay silent, to follow the crowd, to numb out, to give in. You don't become a monster all at once. You lose yourself piece by piece, each time you abandon your values for comfort or acceptance. But the good news, you can also build yourself back piece by piece. It starts by paying attention. Ask yourself, who do I become when I'm around certain people? What values do I let go of just to fit in? What habits are numbing me instead of healing me? If the answer scares you, that's okay. It means you're awake. And you're still capable of change. I've learned that it takes courage to walk away from what's familiar, to be the one who speaks up when it's inconvenient, to say, no, I don't want to laugh at that. No, I'm not okay pretending this doesn't hurt someone. That courage doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's choosing not to gossip. Sometimes it's being kind to the person everyone ignores. Sometimes it's apologizing, especially when no one asked you to, and if you've already made mistakes. If you've hurt someone, ignored your conscience, or lost your way, you're not alone, and you're not beyond redemption. We're all walking contradictions, capable of both kindness and cruelty, and the only way we stay human is by choosing every day to come back to what matters. Community helps. When you're surrounded by people who value empathy, honesty, and growth, you feel safer being your real self. You're less likely to trade your soul for social acceptance. So seek out people who challenge you to be better. Not perfect, just honest. Not popular, just kind. Not strong, just aware. Because the world doesn't need more people pretending to be good. It needs people who are willing to do the work, even when no one's watching. That includes me, and maybe you too. Thanks for listening to my story. If anything here resonated, I hope you'll reflect on it, share it, or talk to someone you trust. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. What do you think turns good people into monsters? And more importantly, what helps us stay good in a world that makes it so easy not to be? Brain, this is dayPsych, where we use applied psychology to explore the real stuff: identity, morality, healing, and growth. If you found value here, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Stay aware, stay kind, stay human. We'll see you in the next one.